Good morning. Kalimera σας. Hellenic Innovation Forum. It's good to be here. It's good to be here. I appreciate that the Netherlands is a country of honor this year, the Hellenic Innovation Forum. I'm glad we could bring several speakers from the Netherlands to this forum these days, and I hope you go and see them. Innovation, it means learning and doing. Learning from each other and doing by selecting and applying best practices. Now, innovation is not necessarily blue sky research, as some people may believe, but it's definitely searching for blue oceans, going for the blue ocean strategy. I'd like to speak to you today about several topics I believe are important in fostering innovation here in Greece. It's startups and Orange Grove, it's competitiveness, it's about education, and it's about connectivity. Let me start with the startups. You all know, you've all heard about Orange Grove. It was founded by the Dutch Embassy several years ago as a flexible co-work space for young Greek entrepreneurs. Why? Because we wanted to stem the brain drain. We wanted to provide opportunities here in Greece. But also because when you look at the Greek media these days, it's all about the macroeconomic side, the macroeconomic damage control. It's all about the Thursday's Eurogroup, for example, about debt relief, about the post-program framework, about the IMF's role. These matters are very important, but history has shown that the economies which recover best from an economic crisis worldwide are the economies that also give attention to the microeconomic side. And then it's about entrepreneurship, it's about innovation, it's about commercialization. And these matters are important, and we wanted to provide an impulse to that. Orange Grove was also in the interest. I'm often asked, what is the interest for the Netherlands to do this? It's the interest of my country in the Eurozone to see the Greek economy recovering. And we have no illusion that we, just with one startup incubator, that we can help the whole Greek economy turn around. But we do believe we needed to provide a spark of inspiration, a spark of innovation to Greek thinking about the economy. What does Orange Grove do? First of all, it provides good services to startups. Secondly, we're doing advocacy for early stage entrepreneurship. And thirdly, we want to connect Athens and the Greek startup ecosystem to more advanced startup ecosystems elsewhere in the world. And I'll explain. When it's about services to startups, Orange Grove grew from a flexible co-work space into a fully fledged startup incubator. It provides boot camps, organized, for example, with the Amsterdam Center for Entrepreneurship. It has a mentor network. It organizes workshops. We have entrepreneurs in residence. One of them, Robin Schuil, will be here these days. We're working with VCs, such as Metavalon and others. We organize pitching events. And to give you one example, March 8th, we had our last large pitching event at Orange Grove on International Women's Day. We had 8 young Greek entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs pitching in front of 4 female jury members, 2 from Greece and 2 from the United States. And the prize winner then wins €15,000 and the runner-up €10,000 as pre-seed money. There is no public money into Orange Grove. There's no taxpayers' money floating around in Orange Grove. It's all financed by several Dutch companies which act as sponsors and 2 Greek foundations, the Bodosaki Foundation and especially the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, which make it possible. And we would like to get more sponsorship also from Greek companies. So that's good services to startups. Now advocacy for early stage entrepreneurship in Greece. Advocacy to the government with the message, don't wait for domestic demand to pick up. Look also at the supply side, look at entrepreneurship. And to this Syriza-led government especially, I want to say, today's entrepreneur is not the old caricature of an entrepreneur. Look at the young people active at Orange Grove and other incubators. These are people with hipster beards and they arrive on a bicycle with a tablet under their arm and they're socially conscious, they're ecologically conscious. This is not your traditional stereotype of an entrepreneur. We also do advocacy about early stage entrepreneurship to the private sector. In my experience, when I compare to my own country, the Greek private sector is sometimes quite old-fashioned, more interested in protecting their market share than in facing competition and looking for new markets. And my message to the private sector in Greece is, prepare yourself, update your business models. There's something disruptive out there. Take startups seriously. Advocacy we also do towards society, because I see that the social status of startup founders is still quite low in Greece. And my embassy trying to help to boost their status, showcase their relevance, also to make that they have less fear of failure. So we try to provide good service to startups, we do advocacy, and like I said, what we also do is to connect the Greek startup ecosystem to more advanced startup ecosystems elsewhere in the world. Orange Grove is not exclusively Dutch. Like this pitching event we had on March 8th, 2 of the judges came from the US. We organized it with the American embassy. We lately had an expert from Ireland for a workshop. We had the president of Estonia visiting, speaking about digitalization and e-governance. We had the president of the Slovak Academy of Sciences visiting. We had people from Tel Aviv, we had people from Boston, from Berlin, from Chile. We cooperate with the French, their Mazinov initiative here at the embassy. We're not exclusively Dutch. If there's anyone from any other country which is advanced in startups and scale-ups that can provide knowledge to Greek startups, he or she is welcome. Especially the she's, I should say, because there's so many interesting ladies and female startup entrepreneurs in Greece, but in terms of Greek speakers, it often stays rather male-dominated. We want to help Greece. We've opened a branch for Orange Grove in Patras at the Science Park. One of the co-founders will speak at this conference too. We have helped in Thessaloniki to set up OKTES, startup incubator set up by the universities and the municipality. We recently did agri-food masterclasses at Forth, the research institute in Heraklion on Crete, where we flew in people from the Dutch Agriculture University of Wageningen for that, to train young Greek startup entrepreneurs in how to develop their business models. This is all relevant because I just want to remind you of it. In a country like the Netherlands, in the past few years, over 70,000 new jobs have been created by startups. In Amsterdam alone, last year, we saw 7.2% growth in startup job offers. And yes, Delft, with which we also cooperate, which is the startup incubator of the Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands, its 200 startups claim that they have generated 1,400 new jobs. So this is important. But startups are not only about the jobs. They are also an integral part of any modern economy. In Greece, I still often hear that startups provide a nice little job for my niece or nephew. But that's not what I hear from CEOs in my country. We had the CEO of Philips Electronics visiting Orange Grove last year, Frans van Houten. And what he said is that a multinational company like Philips, they need an environment of startups because they think creatively, out of the box. They generate ideas that such a large multinational company doesn't automatically generate. That is important. What some CEOs in the Netherlands say, startups make elephants dance. They keep the large companies sharp, and some of these startups are bought by the large companies. Others are nurtured, but not incorporated, not absorbed by the large company because they want the small startup to be in its own business culture, its own creative business culture, and some they ignore, because that's what they need is the environment of creative thinking around them through startups. So startups make elephants dance. If Greece wants to build a modern economy, an economy of innovation, it needs a new generation of entrepreneurship, including startups. And what I see here in Greece at Orange Grove is the talent is there, the creativity is there, the resilience is there because of years of crisis. We only need to move to less fear of failure. If you start a startup and it turns out, after like 2 years working on it, that your project doesn't work, that maybe the market is not ready for it, maybe there's already a kind of idea like that in the market, maybe monetization is not there. If you work on it for 2 years and then you terminate your project, that's an affordable loss in a young person's life. And you'll probably have learned more than at a very expensive American business school. Increasingly, I see that large companies see it this way too. So let's invest in a new generation of startup entrepreneurs, and let's show that it's not a problem to fail because you'll learn from it. You learn from your failure. So that's what I wanted to say about startups in Orange Grove in a quite extensive way. I'll be a bit short about the other topics. My second topic was competitiveness, because competitiveness is linked to innovation. In a globalizing world, competitiveness is key. And when I look at competitiveness, I always look at those rankings. IMD, the business school from Lausanne, just came out a few weeks ago with this world competitiveness ranking. And guess which country scored best in Europe? That's my country, the Netherlands. I'm very proud of it. Number 4 in the world in terms of competitiveness, after the US, Hong Kong, and Singapore. That was no surprise to me because the World Economic Forum, and these are the men and women who organize the Davos meetings every year, they came, earlier this year, they came with a Global Competitiveness Index, and also there the Netherlands is number 4. But this did not happen automatically. When you look at it about 10 years ago, we were not in the top, among the top 10. We were number 11 or so. And we have tried to move up through smart decisions and smart policy choices. Now, where's Greece in those rankings? At the IMD ranking, Greece is number 57 and stagnating. In the Global Competitiveness Index, Greece is number 87, behind Ukraine and Algeria. On the World Bank's Doing Business Index, about the ease of doing business, Greece is number 67 and not moving up. Let me be very honest here. That's not good enough for a country in the Eurozone. And I believe Greece can do much better, and Greece should do much better, also to attract more FDI. Attracting foreign investment is not just the government talking about it. Attracting foreign investment is making the smart choices in policy and also in the private sector and elsewhere to move up in terms of competitiveness. And I know from my country that investors look at those rankings. They look at those things. They know they're not science, but they see that like an IMD ranking uses hundreds of indicators and the hard data is weighed twice as much as the perception data. This is important. They look at those kind of things. They compare different countries. Now I see at the same time that all the eyes of the Greek media are focusing on August 20, the exit of the bailout program. I understand. I see how important that is. But I would recommend them to also look at the real economy and look at competitiveness. Where will Greece be in 10 years from now, in 15 years from now, in 20 years from now, in a globalizing world? You need to improve your competitiveness, and that should be the debate right now. The debate should be much more about increasing competitiveness than about the exact modalities of the post-program framework. So that is, I believe, an important message I wanted to bring to you. Greece will have to do a lot of homework to improve its competitiveness in modernizing its public administration, in the judicial system, which is far too slow still, in the education system, which should provide more skills that are needed in the labor market. We should open up product markets. OECD is doing very important work in that regard. And lastly, let me say we should also improve mentality in the sense of meritocracy. At Orange Grove, what I often hear from the startups is I see them, I see the level of human capital, I see their creativity, I see how good they are, and then I become very optimistic. But I often ask them, what do you want to see improved in Greece? And they say, we want to see good governance, we want to see less bureaucracy, less red tape, we want to see a stable and fair tax system, with please lower tax burden. But above all, what they also say, we want more meritocracy in Greece. We want a change in mentality in the public sector, in the private sector, at schools, in sports, that people can move ahead, not because they're a niece or a nephew, but based on merit, because they deserve it. I believe that is very important. So that's what I wanted to say about competitiveness. So I talked about startups in Orange Grove, I talked about competitiveness. I also want to say a few words about education, because that's also linked to innovation. I would advise Greek professors, university professors, to move out of their ivory towers and become more relevant to society. Yes, blue sky research is important, but at the same time, When public resources have to be invested and allocated in higher learning, in academic research, we also have to look at the relevance of the well-being of society as a whole, the progress and prosperity and development of a society. So when the choice is to allocate public money to a project on, let's say, the anthropology of a forgotten tribe in Papua New Guinea, or the other side, cancer research, I know where my priority would lie. I know what is more relevant to society. And this is not so-called neoliberalism, to say so. This is about what matters to people and what matters to the development of society. Also in education, let's connect skills that our students need to acquire to be relevant in society, including the labor market. For example, I was posted in Tel Aviv before I came here. I know Israel is a country with many flaws, but we can also sometimes learn from it. I went to the Technion, which is the University of Technology in Haifa, and there I met Dan Shechtman. He is a Nobel Prize winner in 2011 in chemistry for discovering quasi-crystals. And now at that University of Technology, he's not only teaching chemistry and quasi-crystals anymore, he's also organizing, together with a Dutch guy, he's organizing workshops to first-year students about entrepreneurship. That's not forcing them into entrepreneurship. It's just telling them what it is to be an entrepreneur and what you can learn from that. I believe these kind of things are important to do. And I also noticed that, for example, a few years ago from the Amsterdam Center of Entrepreneurship, we had some master students from Amsterdam coming to Greece and looking at the startup ecosystem here. And what they found out very quickly is that there is not enough linkage between the universities and startups and startup incubators. We have it at Orange Grove, for example, with the Athens University of Economics and Business, but it should be a lot more. We have it in Patras, where, of course, we developed the branch of Orange Grove also because there are good technology and agriculture students there, but it should happen a lot more, that not only we reach out to universities, but universities reach out to us, to startups, to startup incubators, to the new generation in Greece. I believe that that is important and it should not be a taboo. And again, I say it from a country that's rather progressive. I say it from a country that's trying to invent new things. It's not something necessarily neoliberal. On the contrary, it's about relevance to society. So I've talked about startups, I've talked about competitiveness and about education. I also want to say something, my last topic, connectivity. Because connectivity is important in a globalizing world, I believe. Greece, like the Netherlands, is blessed with a relevant geographical location. If you look at the map and you look at transportation streams around the world. The Netherlands is a gateway to Germany, to Belgium, to France. The Netherlands is a hub. It's not only Amsterdam Airport being number 3 in Europe. It's not only Rotterdam Harbor being number 1 harbor in Europe. It's also an internet logistics hub. When you look at the largest European internet exchange point, which is called AMS-IX, the volume per month is between 1 and 1.3 million terabytes. Just imagine what that means. Just imagine what it means. And it's not a coincidence that companies such as Google or Microsoft, that they built very large data centers in the Netherlands to support our European clients. Holland is one of the most wired countries in the world. And one of Google's data centers in the Netherlands is 100% powered by renewable energy because we believe climate is important too. Well, Greece is blessed with also with an important geographical location. And I think if it is innovative, it can also develop itself into a hub. It already is in many, many ways. That's also, connectivity is also key, not only in a physical sense, but also in a sense of internet connection and so on. Lastly, let me say a few words, because Thursday is coming up, and I know some people have asked me about it, about the Eurogroup on Thursday in Luxembourg on June the 21st. It will be important. I see a clear commitment to reach a comprehensive deal on Thursday, with full completion of the fourth review, with a robust post-program framework we would come to, and a decision about additional debt relief for Greece. Yes, we're still discussing the role of the IMF, but that's not the only point here. There are many other points that are discussed. What I see when I look at the Eurozone and Greece, I think that's also relevant in terms of innovation. and I look at the post-program situation, I see that in any circumstances, especially also in the context of the developments in Italy, the political developments there, for example, I think it's very important for Greece to continue its policies, the reform policies. Greece cannot afford any policy reversal, we believe. It's important that the reforms must remain on track. This government and the next government. And implementation of what has been adopted and what has been introduced in legislation is extremely important. We'll need that in the next 5 to 10 years to complete the structural reforms in Greece. Nobody wants to see Greece lapsing into crisis again. It's not in our interest. Not in our interest in the Netherlands, not in our interest in France, in Slovakia, Malta, and in Ireland and other Eurozone countries. So Greece cannot afford any policy reversal. It's important that the reforms must remain on track. So to minimize any risks for Greece. Let me leave it at that. I talked to you about startups. I talked to you about competitiveness. I talked to you about education, about connectivity. And yes, there is a link with what's decided in the Eurogroup. There is a link with the institutions and the creditor countries. But it's very important, not only in the Greek media and at Greek conferences, to speak at the macroeconomic side about the IMF and the Eurogroup, etc. It's important to look at the real economy, to look at entrepreneurship, to look at commercialization, and yes, indeed, innovation. And that's why I'm very glad that this conference puts the spotlight on that, on innovation, which is key for the future of the Greece economy. And I'm glad that from the Netherlands we can help this conference to succeed. Thank you very much.